or we've heard about boundaries, we've learned about boundaries, but we learn it about in a way that it is not practiced, that we be in integrity with ourselves. And so, what are our needs? How do we communicate them, identify them? How do we even know what we want? Those things can be a little bit iffy, particularly for folks who tend to go into fawning reactions, which is when you appease or submit or go along with something because you're fearful, whether you're fearful for your life, but maybe you're fearful this person won't like you anymore, or that you might upset them, or that.
Welcome to Let's Talk About It Tuesdays, where I share conversations that I have with successful women, all answering the same questions. And then we simply chat it up a bit. You get to be a fly on the wall in these conversations. My discussion today is with Doctora Yael Rosenstock Gonzalez, researcher, educator, published author, sexologist, and the founder of Sex Positive You. Doctora Yael has spent over 20 years supporting and helping people experience safety, pleasure, and authentic consent. Her work isn't just about that three-letter word, sex. It's about so much more. This is my discussion with Doctora Yael Rosenstock Gonzalez, and it's one that we can all benefit from. Hello.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. You?
I'm good. It's a little early here for me, but
I saw it at 9 a.m.
but we're here. I love it.
And I'm showered, which wasn't a maybe because the water started to go down this morning. It went
Oh,
away last night too, but I
yes.
figured it back by morning. And then while I was washing dishes, it was like, I'm good, bye.
Yeah. Victory. Love it. Okay, well, we're just going to dive right in.
Excellent.
Welcome to Let's Talk About It Tuesdays. Okay, well, the first question that I have for you is, what is quality of life to you?
For me, it's a balance of the things that bring you joy and the things that bring you purpose, excitement, connection. It
What
just,
is
to me,
what
it
is
means balance.
balance? Okay, good. Thank you for verifying that because that was my next question. What is balance to you?
That the different pieces of your life support and interconnect in ways that ground you and keep you stable and motivated rather than frustrated or overwhelmed.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What does that balance look like for you and that quality of life look like for you in your everyday? Because I know you're busy, your busy life.
I'd say I have very high quality of life. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily balanced. So um, I love my life. I get to spend most of my time doing things I truly enjoy and that excite me. I think the reason that balance is something that is top of mind is because I have too many things that excite me and bring me joy, many different opportunities that motivate me and give me energy, but then don't necessarily allow for other things, which in my case is things that make money that also excite me because I'm working on all these other things that are so beautiful and creative that don't generate income. But I do spend time with family. That part I'm good at. So I need to be better at creating more connections, like with friends and local communities, since I've moved so many times in the past few years. But now
Mm,
I'm pretty stable, and so I think that's the part that would make me feel more balanced. But overall,
yeah.
my quality of life is high.
Yes, what I have found is balance and stability is so crucial to creating that balance and creating, that harmony. I call it harmony. Because I know a lot of us are like, oh, I need some work-life balance or I need some, creativity, monetary balance, but I have found that it's a harmony.
Mhm.
It's
I like
it's it's never equal. It's I'm focusing on this over here and then this is going on over there. And so for me, there ends up being a tension that I'm because I balancing just my personality, just sharing a little bit about me, but my personality is like there's no balance. I am all
it's
in with whatever.
it's interesting that you name like as if equal balance. I'm a Libra, so literally our
Yeah.
sign is someone with balances, but we also know that things don't weigh the same amount. right? And so when I think of balance, I don't think of equal or even like what is the time commitment so much as like the energy commitment and what do you need to have more energy in your life and what needs less. And things might weigh heavier. There might be things that like with a little bit of it, for example, as a sexologist, right? I love having sex. I do not want to have sex for 6 hours a day. That does not feel balanced to me. Um, but having sex a few times a week and then having time with my family and friends every day, that feels balanced to me.
Yeah.
And it's different amounts of time.
That's a great descriptor of, what that can look like for you and for other people that might be watching this in our own life. Because yeah, I go to the simplistic view of like, yeah, I'm gonna have it weigh equally, but your point is, very, very powerful. Okay, so you gave some really good ways in which or some examples in which you incorporate that. Sorry, I have not had enough coffee today. I'm just going to be honest. It's early, it's borderline dark out here, but it's not. I'm exaggerating. Okay, so I'll go back. So you have given some really good descriptors of, kind of your balance. How do you thrive, if you want to expand that a little bit more, in applying quality of life to your life?
Sure. So I'm neurodivergent and through ADHD for sure, unclear about the others. But one of the jokes is that, and I just told this to my students who are also, some of whom are neurodivergent, that structure is really hard, right? Having something be the same is like a very difficult thing to maintain. And also it is what allows me to thrive. So when you said that, like having structure, having stability, I need stability in order for my well-being to exist.
Hmm.
Um, and so I've forgotten the question. There's a little more
How
of
do you
mine there.
thrive within your quality of life, your parameters of what's important to you in quality of life?
So building structure,
Hmm.
because I have all the things going on in my life, I might not be able to maintain I haven't chosen to strictly maintain any sort of sleep schedule or anything, but I create spaces that help me thrive. And so the way that we know each other, right? I host a weekly space for business women, and then I host weekly spaces for sexologists who are into research. I host weekly spaces for somatic sexologists who are practicing their crafts. And so for me, having spaces where I'm in community with other people who are interested in similar things, where we can be connected and like learn about each other's lives a little bit and then also work together, that allows me to thrive. And
Mm.
without it, I do struggle.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you said creating structures. You're not necessarily participating in existing ones, especially if they don't support where you need to go. You're creating them. You're going out of your way to find the people or all the things that are involved for what you need and creating them.
I do also join when I can. I just got kicked out of one group because I was in a student group, but I haven't been a student for about a year now. And they realized, they were like, this is for students. And I was like, okay, bye-bye.
Thanks for
So that's
noticing
where I
me.
would have been today had they not kicked me out. So my shirt is very interested in flashing people. That's good to know
Okay.
in the future.
As usual, we just keep it real here. This is unedited. Well, there's three questions, but other than that, there's no script. Okay, so where are you challenged to implement quality of life?
Recently, I was reflecting on the fact that, and my mother pointed it out, and I was like, nah, you're wrong. But then she was right. Um, so I create all these online spaces because that's what's most easily accessible right now. And I really enjoy them and they make me feel connected. But then recently, when there was this in-person event, so I live in Puerto Rico, there's something called Sanse, which is like a lot of days of celebrations, concerts, and artisanal things and all that jazz. And I had a lot of trouble finding folks to go do things with. Like I got to go to one of the concerts I wanted to go to with a cousin and her friends, but overall it was like, oh, where are the people that I know and why is no one going to these things? And so it made me realize that my mother's right. It's not enough to be connected to people on Zoom. I need to be more proactive about these in-person experiences. And I do. I have dance classes, I go out, hang out with friends. I hosted a get together this week, but more of that. I'm struggling to do that more regularly because I realize I depend so much on my interactions with my husband and now my mother, who's here seasonally with us. And so that to me is like, oh, I got my human connection and now I'm going to go back to work. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, you need to work more thoughtfully on that so that those connections in person are better maintained and more, I don't know, it's more readily available to connect with people in person when I want to and when they want to.
Yeah. And what I hear you saying is more community around you, around your physical community, and not
Yes.
just, the place in which you live, but the people with which you live in that space. And yeah, I think a lot of us are really coming out of this, post-COVID era where we've learned to create so much online and connect.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. I find that same thing too. You're in Puerto Rico, I'm in Southern California. It's a beautiful thing that we actually know each other more based on where we met each other. But going in, I find that same challenge. My neighbors here, nobody comes over to dinner, which would be nice. But it's a little bit harder to connect in person within communities, and it does require being intentional. Yeah.
Oh, I lost you for a second. It does require.
The realities of also the realities. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's also the realities of being digitally connected.
Mm.
So
And
we'll see. You didn't get stuck for me, so let's see how everything comes across.
sounds good.
Yeah.
I was
All
going to
right.
say that you mentioned like the pre-COVID versus, our current situation. Before COVID, I was in school. And so I had returned to school as a 29-year-old and I made all these connections. I was the person who hosted dinner regularly. I connected people in groups. Like I had my little gang. And so it makes me think there's a woman, Dr. Marissa Franco, I believe is the last name, about how to make friends as adults, right? And that sort of conversation of the difficulty when you don't have school or an in like a I don't work for anyone. I adjunct for different universities, but I don't work in sort of an office environment. And so where we used to make connections and used to have things, some of
Mm,
us don't have access to that anymore. And so that also creates a sort of struggle for
yeah,
adults out of school.
absolutely. Yeah, and the thing that I have found this last year, because I put myself in a position to make new friends, go outside of my normal boundaries, is keep showing up consistently. And all of a sudden, one day I walk in the room and someone's like, "Hey, it's so good to see you." I'm like, "Oh, I know people." Just keep showing up. Huh, what a concept. But you think about it with school, we keep showing up. With work, we keep showing up. Everything else, we pop in once and we're like, "I haven't made any friends." Once or twice, even. But being involved with people who are excited to see us, it's a beautiful thing. Makes us feel so welcome and gives us that connection for quality of life. For me, for quality of life. All
Yes.
right. Well, that's the scripted portion of our podcast time. Let's get into some more just organic, what is it that we want to talk about moments. And I initially invited you because I am excited and intrigued about the work that you do. And if you're okay with that, I would love to talk more about what you do, what your hope is, how you help people, and just anything you want to offer us on. And I won't be that big. I'll ask you a question first, but anything that you want to offer us on, the importance of what you do. So Yael mentioned she's a sexologist, and my intrigued part was, I come from a very uh, conservative background of like, we don't talk about that. We do it, but we don't talk about it, and it's not allowed if you're not in a certain situation. And so, as I've been kind of broadening my spectrum of life to meet someone like you in the work that you do, I don't mean to say like you, but someone like you as the work that you do and who the person that you are is exciting to me. So, would you mind sharing about what you do for your career? And then anything else you want to share on the top of that?
Yes, and so similar, there's just a lot of names. I do research, and so my research centers on right now Caribbean island Hispanas, and so women from DR, PR, and Cuba living in the United States, but it's about to branch out into the full Latin experience. But mostly I look at embodiment, pleasure, experiences of body, fetishization, and such like that. That's my research hat. I'm also a coach, and my titles are like arosomatic touch practitioner, sex doula, authentic consent facilitator, and all these things. But what I mostly work on is helping people experience safety, pleasure, joy, and consensualness with others, but also with themselves. Because often the issue is not so much, or we've heard about boundaries, we've learned about boundaries, but we learn it about in a way that it is not practiced that we be in integrity with ourselves. And so, what are our needs? How do we communicate them, identify them? How do we even know what we want? Those things can be a little bit iffy, particularly for folks who tend to go into fawning reactions, which is when you appease or submit or go along with something because you're fearful, whether you're fearful for your life, but maybe you're fearful this person won't like you anymore, or that you might upset them, or that there'll be tension and conflict. And so I particularly like to work with folks who could benefit from having more clear boundaries and a sense of like the standards that they need in order to exist in a consensually and joyful life.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then I teach sex education, right? I'm a university instructor and all those things.
I love it. Basically, what I hear you saying is a lot of sex topics, relations that I almost said anything sex related, but that's just not fair of me to say. So, and it's probably not true. But you mentioned a couple things that I want to talk about. And one of them was boundaries. And, that is again, another buzzword. To me, it's like balance. And a lot of the times we focus on the boundaries that we create with other people. And to your point, the boundaries that we create with and for ourselves are equally as crucial, if not more crucial. Will you share a
Mhm.
little bit more about that and the importance of it?
Sure. And boundaries are something that we name and we create for ourselves. And then we have to decide who we let into our life based upon the boundaries that we hold. So we
Mhm.
can create rules for other people and see if they'll follow them. So I can say, I only, like, I don't accept phone calls after 10. Don't call me after 10. That's a rule. So my boundary though is I don't accept phone calls after 10, which means I put my phone on silent, right?
Mhm.
I can tell you not to do something, but it's not actually, it's my responsibility. And if you insist, like you say, you need to have your phone on for me, it is a must, then I get to decide whether or not this relationship makes sense and at what level. Do
Mhm.
I say, I'm happy to continue in relationship with you, but this will not be changing. I
Mhm.
will continue to put my phone on silent. Or do you say, I think this doesn't make sense if we can't have, if this doesn't work, if neither of our needs can be met within this,
Mhm.
then I wish you the best.
Yes. So how does that apply to sex?
I mean, it applies. It's funny. I so rarely get to talk about this when it comes to sex because I teach consent from this sort of life perspective rather than the sex perspective, because I think it's something that we don't have well practiced in life. And so to me, it's like, oh, sex is this generally it's a higher stakes situation where there's more emotions and hormones and all the things involved.
Right.
But with sex, let's say, so for me, I am non-monogamous, which means that I can have multiple partners. And I am quite careful about who I fluid bond with. And fluid bond just means like swap fluids. I will fluid bond with kissing. So I'll swap spit with someone as long as I don't have a cut on my mouth or they don't have a cut on their mouth. So I do make exceptions. But I will not fluid bond on almost any other way. So I don't perform or receive oral sex or penetrative sex. Um, and even with hands, I sometimes now will use gloves and what have you. And so that means that I need to be responsible to make sure that there are the things I need, whether they're dental dams, condoms, gloves, available. I can tell people this is important to me. And so my boundary is that I only engage in sexual experiences that to me feel physically safe. And I will only have sex with people who agree to that. I won't, right? If they want something else, that's
Yes.
wonderful. But for me,
Yes.
that's not the kind of sex we're going to have.
And what I hear you saying too is that you actually it's not just something you decide in the moment, it's something that whether it's based on experience or cautionary tales of other people or whatever may come to it to be, is you've made the decision beforehand for yourself based on your own standards of what works for you and what's important to you, right? I hear health in that. I hear safety in that. I hear taking care of your own self and your own body. And so that's why I wanted to ask about what does that look like with sex? Because a lot of the times, especially those of us who are not used to this, we understand it in concept, but we don't really know how to, in small steps apply it. So, and of course, nobody's going to get all of it in this one episode that we're sharing. It's a growth process, and
But
it
I can offer
requires.
an emotional one if that's helpful.
Oh, say
Because
that again.
I can offer an emotional one if that's
Oh,
helpful,
yeah,
because I offered a practical one, right? That's like condoms or no condoms, right? Very universal.
yeah.
Um, so one thing is that over the years, I've become more discerning about who I'm willing to be in a sexual relationship with. And so while I make mistakes and I've been in sexual relationships with people that I no longer would like to be, um, one of those things is that it is important to me that we share similar values around human dignity. And human dignity for me includes all my peoples and all the ways that folks are marginalized. And so, for example, not recently, last year, I went on a date and I remember the person, um, I was talking about queer things and they all of a sudden I think got nervous. They're like, "Oh, do you have a vulva?" And I was like, "Oh, yes, I do." Cool. You like to have sex with people with vulvas? No problem with that. I got one. Then they asked if I was born with it, which in my case, I happened to be born with it. But I realized that there was sort of this fear and
Mm.
around that maybe I was a trans woman. And that's like a whole other conversation. But I realized I don't really want to be in relationship with a cisgender man who felt the need to ask me all these questions in order to feel safe. Um, like he gets to have his boundaries and I get to choose that that's not the kind of
Right, right.
connection that I would like to engage in. And so
Yes,
that to me was an example, right? Something that came up that I was like, oh, for me, this is an important value. Trans people are the genders that they are. And so I don't connect to the need for that, but I recognize that other people do. And so I
right,
wish them and I keep it moving.
right. Exactly. So you get to be you, I get to be me, and I get to decide whether or not that works for me, and vice versa.
Mhm.
Okay, so you also mentioned, thanks for sharing that, by the way. You also mentioned fawning. And
Yes.
I think that's one of the things that is very common that happens with women. I don't care what age we are. And it's a new word that I have not heard this word until maybe the last couple or few years. And so would you mind explaining what fawning is and how it might look like in when we're in a relationship or not in a relationship with sexual activity?
Sure. So what it is, just to put it into context, our bodies go in, have like parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous responses. And so when we get activated, when our body goes into sort of what's called fight, flight, freeze, and fawn as well as flop, those are all different responses our body has to help protect us and to keep us safe because it's noticing a threat in some way. So like I
Hmm.
said before, threat to life for sure, but threat to life includes threat to companionship, threat to connection, threat to social status. All of those things will activate a fear of bear response.
A fear of
Like
what? I'm sorry.
like a bear comes at
Oh,
us,
okay.
or
Okay.
someone threatens our livelihood, our body is still reacting to the threat. And so it shows up in different ways. And so people are familiar generally with fight, right? You punch someone out or you start to argue. Flight, you run away. Freeze, right? You literally that sort of in headlights, your body goes
Mhm.
stiff, right? With fawning, there's different ways that it can look, but internally, it's likely that you might have a monologue going on and trying to figure out what's happening. Like trying to figure out, is this a threat? Is this not a threat? What do I do? I'm going to smile. I'm going to pretend to be okay with it. So it's different from freeze because freeze, there's like a noticeable disconnection or you're not disassociating with the situation. With fawn, you might appear to be consenting, you'll appear to be going along with the situation because your mind is saying, go along, that will keep you safe. And so it can be tricky. And it's very easy for, like you said, it's socialized wise, women will go into fawning because it's how we're taught to stay safe and to be nice and to play and to be polite and all of those things.
Yeah.
And so relationally, it can show up in all sorts of ways, but giving, people who like tend to give a lot. And so, oh yes, I can do that. I can take care of that. Oh, of course I want to go to this thing that maybe I don't want to go to and I'd rather be at home or I'd rather be at a rock concert, who knows, whatever it is your preferences are. But you go along with the things because you think it'll keep other people happy, which is also a form of dishonesty, right? You're being dishonest with them. Sometimes you're being dishonest with yourself if you're disconnected enough from your needs and your wants that you're no longer able to tell what you want. It might be a sign that you do a lot
Yeah.
of fawning.
Yeah, so when you bring up the word safe, that makes me think like that is such a subjective word. What makes you feel safe and what makes me feel safe is one thing or two different things. And if I'm thinking about what makes me feel safe in this kind of situation, it's to keep that connection, to do whatever I can to keep that connection and not lose love or receive, because very often, I keep saying very often, it's not uncommon that for us as women that if we don't want to do it we receive, and things get to a certain point, we receive kind of we get ostracized, we get, the relationship can tend to be removed. Oh, you're annoyed with me. No, don't be annoyed with me, just love me, and so when you're saying that word safe, it's it's not, for me, what I hear is it's not always as the bear is coming. Sometimes it's really nuanced. It
Mhm.
has to do with dynamics in a relationship, if we're in a relationship, or if we're trying to be in a relationship, or if we, are, even if we're not in a relationship, none of us wants to be in a place or feel unsafe or like we're going to be losing something because we don't give what's expected.
So if your safety is so precarious, right? If it's so easy to lose, then it's not safety, right? It's an illusion of safety. And so that's what
Mhm.
happens, right? We think this is what we want. We think this is like what we need and what's good for us. And so we stay in a situation that is not good enough for us, that is not making us, it takes away we are unable to feel like we belong, right? Belonging, when we actually feel that we belong, that is a sense of safety. Because when you belong, you can make mistakes. You don't have to be perfect when you belong because you're accepted for who you are. And so being relational with folks, you can still make mistakes. You can still not want to do the same things. There can be conflict present. That's safety.
Yeah,
But when we're constantly tiptoeing to maintain our safety, that's not safety, that's an illusion. And
right.
then we're basing our decisions on fear rather than what other more positive motivations we might have,
Yes.
which, then can create a harmful pattern in doing things that we don't want to do. And then it goes back to that sex thing, is that we could then traumatize or experience traumatic experiences or re-traumatize ourselves because we're following the same pattern we follow in life, which is to do things we don't want to do for the sake of others. We endure and we self-sacrifice, and then that causes a very negative relationship with sex. So
Whew. Thank you for that.
we found our like foo, foo, foo.
Well, and I want to be like, okay, now bring it back to consent because it's all in this arena of the importance of consent.
Yes. And so part of what I teach is the importance of being able to recognize your own responses. And so part of that is getting to know your body. Our bodies will let us know what's going on before our minds do, right? We will feel our heart rate start to pound, and that will let us know that we're feeling maybe anxious or agitated or angry. And so when we can identify, okay, something is not okay for me right now, then we can start to think about what is it that I can name, and then I can communicate it with someone else so that we can then continue in a consensual way. But if I'm ignoring my body's glaring, like, hello, hello, listen to me, or I've muted it,
Yeah.
so it's there, but it's pushed under, then it makes it very difficult to have consensual experiences because you're not listening to yourself. So how can you then expect other people to know what you want? Now, that does not excuse people who harm others, right? This is a two-way street. So I teach people, how do you support folks who have disconnected themselves from their needs or who ignore their needs? How do you help them reconnect with their bodies, reconnect with what would help them feel safe to make decisions authentically? And I also work with folks who do this so that they can disrupt those patterns and ask for active help, because it is not a like, Eureka, I figured it out. It is a constant practice that needs affirmation, that needs additional connection. And because we learn to fawn through community connections, right, through relational experiences, we can't learn to stop fawning by ourselves. We need those relational opportunities to practice, not just understanding what we want, but how to navigate those things.
Beautifully said. Thank
I'm
you.
working really hard to not end up naked in this show right now.
I'm proud of you. You're doing great. Well, and that's some of the work that I do with my quality of life programs with women that I work with is really that in that thing is being in touch with our bodies from very, very, very early age, both men and women. We are taught to don't pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to the any of the indicators. We start menstruating. So what if you're on your period? Take that pill and, do that thing. And
Mhm.
so we end up being in this really, really deep, deep tunnel of, just ignoring the signs because that's what we've been taught. And you're right, it is an unlearning process and a relearning process. And the importance of doing that with people who are on the same journey that we are, safe, encouraging, will allow us to be exactly who we are, where we are. And this is what I do with, quality of life. Same
Mhm.
same parallels to what you do with consent is is paramount and to us actually growing here towards health, towards wholeness.
And something that you named reminded me. So, like you said, like in school, right? You're not supposed to eat or drink or go to the bathroom until you've
Mhm.
given permission. So you ignore those bodily cues. But something also happens in that the reality of life. So you might need to ignore your bodily cues as part of your ability to survive. Um,
Absolutely.
being hyperactive isn't necessarily good for the body, but it's something that people not hyperactive, hyper aware and attentive, like of what's going on in their
Mhm.
surroundings, but also sometimes you have to shut everything down.
Yeah.
And so if you're experiencing food insecurity, you might need to learn to shut off your awareness of your own hunger. And so when you're
Mm.
doing this work, we also need to be thoughtful and name, right? Are you in a position to listen to your body? Because if you're continuing to experience food insecurity and you're going to continue to be very hungry, we want to be able to practice like, how do I tune into my body when I want to and when it's actually physically safe for me to do so, so that I can still tune back out when I need that as well. Um, because when you tune into your body, you tune into your body. And so you get more access
Yeah.
to the joy that comes with quality of life. You get more access to the pleasure, the sensory experiences that sex has to offer. And also you get more experience and access to the pain because
Yeah.
you're turning everything back on. And so that is a big question I speak to my clients about, like, are you in a position to turn things back on? Because they will come back on once we start practicing these things.
Yes. It doesn't discriminate. It's going to let everything be presented. So true. So
And
true.
we can learn to move between them,
Hmm.
but it
Exactly.
still means you got to be present at some point in it.
Exactly. Absolutely. Well, I think this is a great time to wrap up this portion of the conversation. I'm so grateful for you and the work that you're doing and the voice that you are bringing to this. It's often a very taboo subject, but when we're talking about it in this way, it in no way, shape, or form should be taboo because it applies to all of us, men and women, but we're just focusing mostly on women. So
And all the genders,
yes, I'm
everyone.
sorry. Yes. Thank you for that addition. I'm learning and growing in that. That is something that I'm very open to. I don't want to use the word correction because it's not correction, but I'm happy to be corrected and definitely want to live in a place of inclusion. And so thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Right. Yeah, it's just a matter of when we are able to gently bring in folks and make sure that we're not excluding people. We do so, right? It's not
Absolutely.
anger, it's in love, like you said, inclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm going to go ahead and leave all of whatever information you want our viewers to see. Is there anything that you want to talk about or promote right now that you have coming up?
I mean, I'm always, when I have my books open, which right now they are, I'm always welcoming new coaching clients. I have different modalities, but I work with people, like I said, on these different topics, as well as accessing additional pleasure in the body and the relationship we have with our bodies and the different ways that that shows up. And so I accept clients and I will be also soon releasing a school to help people learn how to host awesome, interactive, and impactful workshops. So I'll give you those links once they're ready.
Sounds great. All right. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this episode, and I'm wanting to have you back on another time for another episode. So
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
here's a recap of the women I've spoken to in season 3. Kathy Huynh Kabiko, an aligned business clarity coach. She helps us break out of good girl conditioning.
The collateral damage, when you get to the point where you're actually burnt out, it takes a long time to recover.
Jory O'Neill, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and publisher. She helps others share their story with confidence and purpose.
I think it was the first time that I felt like I had permission to no longer keep myself in that box.
Tony Edwards, adventurous roller skating entrepreneur. She loves to bring joy to others, 8 wheels at a time.
As you know, I have skates everywhere. They're in my car, they're in my, they're in my shoe cubby, they're in the garage.
She's not lying. She's not lying.
Everywhere. They're everywhere. If I need them, they're right there. I could just get them and go.
Dr. Rupi Lega, a mental health advocate who endeavors to bridge social justice with clinical care while finding little moments of joy.
The weenies have helped a ton.
Please explain what the weenies are.
But wait.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Dr. Sherelle Joseph, pharmacist and wellness coach. She has a passion for helping us to live our best and healthiest life.
I think as women, also, we have to unlearn it. I think men they know how to say no. It's women. We struggle with it.
And Doctora Yael Rosenstock Gonzalez, sexologist and coach who helps us improve our relationship with ourselves and others.
Think this is what we want. We think this is like what we need and what's good for us. And so we stay in a situation that is not good enough for us, that is not.
I hope you've enjoyed this season as much as I have. Be sure to subscribe so you will not miss a thing. Season 4 will be coming soon. And I encourage you to have those talks, ask those questions with the people in your life, because there is so much more to talk about. So let's talk about it.